Yeah, on Wednesday.
Yes, fantastic. Ben, what happened? What's going on over here?
You should see the other guy, Rabbi.
God forbid, what happened?
Is that noticeable?
Is it noticeable? Is it noticeable?
A little.
I had to have some surgery on my eye, and unfortunately, I don't know if I can stay for the whole session. So my apologies in advance.
Unbelievable, you're a I can't even believe it.
But thank you for being here for me and all of us today.
Refuah shlema, have a complete and full healing for you, my friend.
So yeah, I'm on my mend. I'm on the way to recovery.
Okay, good. Did you say you're on the mend or you're on the meds? Because that could be too.
There's no meds that they could give me. I may have to go out to my personal garden to get my own medication, so to speak.
Hello. Okay. Talking about personal gardens, yet another fabulous segue. Another fabulous segue. So before we begin, why don't we just jump in with a little bracha, a little blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah, for us to get busy with and get busy in Torah. Let it get soaked in Torah. Study. I love it. Fabulous. Wonderful. Okay. So we finished the book of Genesis, Bereshit, and now here it is. Everything that we were, the entire Bereshit is this prologue, right? Prologue comes before, epilogue is after prologue. Yes, is the prologue to this story. This is the story, right, of when we become a people. And it is our story of freedom, the beginnings of the story of our leaders, the story of everything else, where it's like, this is a narrative. And then afterwards, it's all the laws and rules and all the delicious things that come after that. But we're going to jump in because I'm going to share this with you for some of you who we haven't studied as much with. And I know I've said this sometimes before. I love being able to be here with you because selfishly in my own preparation, I'm always learning new things, which is just so fantastic. So thank you for, encouraging that in my journey. All right, here we go. I'm going to share my screen. Which one? Where'd it go? Where are you? No.
All right.
No. Where is it? Hold on. Don't go anywhere. Not that one. Oh, let's see. Take and get another one. Let's try this again. Go wait. Let's look at it over here. This was the problem. All right. Now we got it. This is going to be fabulous. Don't worry. Here it is. Share. Ta-da! Yes. All right, let me make this so I want to be able to see everybody nicely. Donk. There we go. Delicious. Everybody. Did I get everybody? I got every. Yeah. All right, everybody's on my screen. All right, here we go. We're just going to jump right in. We're going right with Shemot. Does anybody know what the word Shemot means in English?
Go?
No, that would be lech, like lech lecha, right?
No.
Like what?
Names.
Yes, Shemot.
That's right.
Right? And so in the Hebrew, right, it says Ve'ele Shmot Bnei Yisrael. So oftentimes, the way that they name Torah portions is really by like one of the first few words in the first sentence. And this one is the names. Whose names specifically? We're talking about the sons of, here comes Penina. Penina's in the house. Here she comes. Fantastic. Here's Penina. All right, I'm jumping in. Check this out. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with. Do you all see this okay? It's big enough? Okay, good.
Perfect.
Fabulous, wonderful, fantastic. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each coming with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zvulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The total number of persons that were of Jacob's issue came to 70, Joseph being already in Egypt. All right, let me ask you this. Why are they coming down to Egypt? What happened before this? What did you learn last week or in years prior? What's going on before here? Why we even start with this? What just happened? Who can give us the backstory? David, go ahead.
Well, Joseph revealed himself to his brothers.
Yeah.
And they went up and brought everybody down into
Why?
Egypt because there's a famine.
Okay, because there's a famine. So there's a famine, and then what happens?
Well, Joseph had provided for the Egyptians
Great.
by
Wonderful.
anticipating the famine. And when his brothers were sent down to get food to take
Right.
back up, over the course of a couple of visits, Joseph revealed himself to the brothers and said, "Is my father still alive?" And he is alive, and he came.
Great. So they come down because of the famine. They were planning on going back to Canaan. But Joseph and Pharaoh's like, Canaan, Shmanan, why go back to that place? That place is dry. There's a famine. Nothing's good ever. Come down here. Come to Egypt. You could settle in the land of Goshen, which is right outside of Egypt. It's fertile. It's like a wonderful place. You can have farms there. You can have big houses, swimming pools, extra bedroom. It's going to be fantastic, right? Come down here and live in this place. Now, time passes where it says, because check it out, Joseph died and all his brothers and all that generation. Joseph died and his brothers, Douglas is coming in. Joseph died and his brothers and all that generation. Let me ask you this. During the time that they were in Egypt, where Joseph was still living, and then the brothers were living, and then they died, and then that whole generation died, did the famine end in other places and in the promised land while they were still here? Did the famine end?
Well, that's a really interesting question. One could presume, because it's a long time that passes, maybe arguably 400 years, right? In other words, not like next week.
Yet, close to that. Yeah. Correct.
So the odds are the world has, the physical world has changed.
Yes.
It doesn't seem to me that it's dealt. What it does say, part of the physical world has changed, is that the Hebrews multiply astoundingly. In other words, the remnant of the 70 is huge.
Okay, but hold on a second. Before we even, the remnant is huge. What is the implication of the famine ending, right? And I don't want to just give it away, but we've got the brothers and the families and the generation, but they're still here. Famine ended, yet they're still in Egypt. What's that about?
Profitable, they were fruitful, they were having lots of children, and they were established.
Okay, they were established. Roots. Fruitful. Why would we want to leave this place? It's great.
In their mind, did the famine really end at this point?
Well, maybe the famine actually changed.
Okay.
Rather than maybe famine of food or something like that. But
I mean, they complain so much about the food up
right,
till
but
this.
that's right later, because they're like, living large up until this point. But maybe what it is like, well, life over there is going to be a little bit more difficult. Why not just stay here because it's easier? All right, David. Yes, go ahead, and then we're going to keep.
I mean,
going.
is there a question also over time, they become slaves. So it's not like, well, we'll stay or we'll go. It's our choice. They are pressed into.
Oh, whoa. Okay. It was their choice all along up until that point. It was their choice all along up until that point, to the point when it was too late. Sound a little familiar over here. I don't know, especially, from my trip coming back from Israel. Here we go. So let's keep that in mind. But the Israelites were fertile and prolific. They multiplied and increased very greatly so that the land was filled with them. Now, here's something fascinating. Hold on, Pnina, hold on. I got a new question for you. It's a new one that we have yet to discuss because I just kind of learned this today. No, I learned this for today. This is fascinating. Get ready for this. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Okay, just that statement alone, right, in its own box. Let's talk about what that could possibly mean. And then I want to add the next couple of sentences that may flip our understanding of this term. So let's go with this. What does this mean? Now the generations, we got hundreds of years. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. What could that possibly mean?
He didn't know what Joseph was capable of.
Okay, what does that mean?
I'm looking at the next line where they're
Don't
talking
look at the next line.
well, what kind of a leader Joseph was, and was Joseph going to do something to oppose the king, the new king?
Joseph was dead already.
Well, that's true.
Generations.
The influence of Joseph on these people.
Okay, this is interesting. So oftentimes it's like, well, who's this Joseph guy? I don't know anything about no Joseph. All I know is that there are these people living outside, living in the best parts of our land who are different than us. They're not even us. We got to do something to get rid of them. They're going to, because of what they could potentially do, potentially harm us. I'm going to get to that in a second. Go ahead, Pnina.
All right. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay. So the fact that Joseph is still being mentioned, I think that the old Pharaoh had some kind of tolerance to the idea of the one God, and what Joseph and his people or his family in Israel were close to or dear to, because Joseph called his sons Hebrew names. So now you have to remember that only 70 went down there. Now you have people, and he's calling them Bnei Israel. They're not no more Yaakov. Once Yaakov went down there and they multiplied, now they're being called Bnei Israel. So that new Pharaoh, I don't think they still had idols. And I think the Hebrews, which they were called at that time, I think they were ready for a change, because the whole idea that Moses all of a sudden woke up.
Whoa, you're getting way ahead. You're getting way ahead.
I know, but I'm trying is that the fact that they're being called Bnei Israel, they're already, monotheism started already to kind of like manifest among them.
Okay.
And they were ready they themselves were different. They felt that they were different.
They were for
and
sure
that's
different.
what Pharaoh felt that they were
this.
different.
Let's focus
They
back on this idea.
They did not believe in the idols, not
Nina,
as much as the Egyptians.
Hold on, Pnina, hold on. Let's focus on the idea of Pharaoh and the Egyptians rather than what the Israelites are feeling right now. What does that mean that a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph? Let's focus it from the Egyptians.
Pharaoh was considered to be a god. And now they believe in another God, in monotheism.
Well, we don't know that yet. We don't know that yet. That doesn't happen.
Okay. Well,
that doesn't happen.
It's brewing.
Okay. So now the next part, this is very interesting. It says, and he said to his people, look, the Israelite people are much too numerous for us. Let us deal shrewdly with them so they may not increase. Get ready. Otherwise, in the event of war, they may join our enemies in fighting against us and rise from the ground. So they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built garrison cities for Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramses. All right, I want to break this down.
They worship the
Hold
dead.
Raise your hand. Come on, Penina. Here we go. Come on, Safta. Here's the thing. This is what I saw. Did this Pharaoh really not know Joseph? Okay, clearly the Pharaoh didn't know Joseph personally because Joseph died long, long ago. But the fact that the Pharaoh is referring to the people as Israelites
Bingo.
shows that he understands where these people came from. He understands the history. Who are these people? Why are they even called Israelites? Where do they come from? They come from Jacob, Jacob's sons, and the proliferation of that generation, and of course, Joseph. There is no way that he wouldn't know that history, especially if he's able to say, all right, these are these Israelites. So what are we going to do? There's a possibility in case, you know, they're different than us. They are not us. They're living among us, but they're not us. And in case we go to war, they may rise up and join our enemies and fight against us. So we are going to enslave them. But what do the Egyptians specifically have the Israelites do? What do they have them build? What do they have them build? What do they have them specifically build? It's not just go build me some nice tennis courts or like a fabulous beach resort, or I don't know, a shipyard. They have them build something very specific. What do we think? What is that?
Mortar and brick.
Well, they use mortar and brick. Jerry, what do they ask them to build?
Well, it says garrison cities, so they're
Okay,
building up
what's
their
that?
strongholds.
What's a garrison city?
Like a stronghold, I think,
Or
for protection. For they're building them in. They're
and
raising
who's
up their
in those
defense.
garrisons? What does a garrison usually have in it?
Soldiers.
Soldiers. So right away, there's not just having them, all right, just in case, let's enslave them so they can, you know, we'll oppress them so they won't rise up. But why then specifically have them build garrison cities? What perhaps there was already some war brewing. It's possible that there was already some war brewing. So let's use these Israelites. We can use them as an excuse, right? Let's use them as an excuse for the problems that are about to come. We'll use them as an excuse for the problems that, we're going to get attacked and they're going to join up. Let's use them as an excuse to oppress. Let's come up with an excuse to oppress them. Right? Let's use them as an excuse. All right, I saw some hands. What's this? Moving this thing out of the way. Go ahead, Penina.
You're muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
You're
You're
still
muted. Adine muted.
muted.
No. One more time. There it is. Go.
Okay, now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. The pyramids were built to bury the dead kings, the king, the pharaohs, and there were tombs. That's
But
where
this
they
doesn't
were
say that
come
they
and
built.
put
It doesn't
in
say
there.
that they built.
And the
pyramids.
king, the pharaohs were considered to be gods. And their children, the children of gods, direct gods, sons of the sun, which was another god to them. They were worshiping the dead because those dead were gods to them. And those Israelites, the fact that we are calling them now Israel, they had already a different concept of who God should be.
But Pnina, hold on. It doesn't say anything about pyramids. We're talking
But
about
those structures that they're referring to, those are the pyramids.
that's debatable.
No,
That's
this is what
debatable.
archaeologists
no
found
way.
out,
That's
and they were
debatable.
worshiping the dead.
But
That's what
the
it
fact
is.
that they're being
Different
called
story.
garrison cities,
Different story.
Well,
Different
okay, so those pyramids were in garrison cities. but-
not
story.
in garrison
They're
cities.
not the pyramids.
Those are not the pyramids.
Got it, okay,
They're
fine,
forts.
okay, Okay.
Yeah.
all right, okay.
So they're already, the wars are brewing. Already, we've got like,
Okay,
here's what's gonna happen if we're fighting these people, and then all of a sudden we got to oppress these people too, because they may rise up against us. This is using this as an excuse because they're living in the best areas. They have the most fertile ground area. You know, they're numerous and they are prospering. And the Pharaoh and the Egyptians don't like this. And they see them as a threat.
okay.
They see them as a threat. Again, this sounds a little familiar, that there's history repeating itself, if you will.
Yes, with the Holocaust, yes.
On many levels, more than just from this time forward, always looking for an excuse, being used as a scapegoat to either mask problems that are going on around you or to use as the excuse for problems and challenges going on around you. None of this is new. We're talking about this still today. None of it is new. Ein mashu chadash tachat
Tachat
hashemesh.
hashemesh. That's right.
Nothing new under the sun. Check it out. Here we go. But the more they were oppressed, the more they increased and spread out, so that the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. The Egyptians ruthlessly imposed upon the Israelites the various labors that they made them perform. Ruthlessly, they made life bitter for them with harsh labor at mortar and bricks and with all sorts of tasks in the field. Ruthless, ruthless, ruthless. These words keeps popping up, keep popping up. All right. So now we know life is not good. There's a lot of oppression, ruthless oppression, right? So, it's not going to be like kind oppression. This is serious business, I'm sure, with beatings and starvation, all the harshness of life. But it wasn't doing the trick. See the evolution of the persecution, right? How it changes. Wow, this isn't working. It's not efficient enough. Let's make it harder. The king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, right? Who were not Israelites. This is interesting. One of whom was named Shifra and the other Pua, saying, when you deliver the Hebrew women, look at the birth stool. If it is a boy, kill him. If it is a girl, let her live. The midwives, fearing God, did not do as the king of Egypt had told them. They let the boys live. Okay, let's define or extrapolate out what that could mean. The midwives, fearing God, did not do as the king of Egypt has told them. Let's take that in a wider lens at that, what that could possibly mean. What could that be a metaphor for, or a simile for, metaphor for? That where did it go? That the midwives fearing God. All right, who just raised their hand? I saw that. Who was it? Raise your hand regular so I can see. What is that? What could that possibly, let's extrapolate out. What does that mean? That the midwives fearing God. Go ahead, Merle.
I think, one, I don't think they wanted to kill anybody, but I think that they felt that as these boys grew up, they could be part of the forces to fight Pharaoh.
So, okay, so what kind of assumptions are you making about the midwives?
That they were on the side of these babies. I mean,
Wow.
they didn't want anybody to die. they didn't want to be responsible for killing anyone,
Okay.
but they also were against Pharaoh and his people.
So what,
as
at
far
the
as-
risk of what? At the risk of what? What do you think that what do you
I think-
believe that Shifra and Puah were risking by doing what they did?
Well, they were risking their lives.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about that, right?
They were
risking
willing-
their lives. Why? Because they were quote unquote, they feared God, right? What does that mean? They were willing to risk their life because they feared God.
Well, God meaning God, or God meaning Pharaoh being a god in
Well,
others'
this is what
eyes.
I'm saying, fearing God, the God of the Israelites.
Right.
Where did Doug
Right,
go?
okay.
Go ahead,
I
finish
think
your
they
thought, bro,
believe
and then
that,
Doug, you're up.
okay,
No, finish
I
your
think-
thought, bro.
I think they believed that God would help them
Ah, all right.
rather than oppress them.
Rather than oppress them. Doug.
I kind of think that they were being influenced by the Israelites. You know, they have been around them a long time, so maybe they were knowledgeable in the beliefs.
Okay, interesting. Good. Good. I mean, again, I can't help but to see, Holocaust imagery here coming back from Israel recently and going to Yad Vashem and walking down like the avenue, what's called the right of righteous Gentiles, right? The non-Jewish people who risked their lives to save Jews, whether children or adults, or just because of this idea of maybe fearing God. Another way of looking at that is a belief in right versus wrong, like an intrinsic and absolute right versus wrong kind of thing, and that they would be willing to risk their life because of their belief in what they thought of as right and wrong. I mean, I just can't help to see the parallels there, right? David, go.
Sorry, I had to unmute.
Yeah.
But aren't they? It says they're Hebrew midwives. They're Hebrews.
No,
So
it
they're-
said the Hebrew midwives, how it is. Yes, so possibly they were.
yeah. So, but you've said the other way. So consider if they're Hebrew midwives, they're just not going to kill their own people.
Or
And-
they're the midwives of the Hebrews.
Yes, but it's not clear. I mean,
Correct.
one
Good.
doesn't
Thank you.
want to force the imagery because I think it's logical that they are Hebrew women, and it's got a folktale quality. There's two
Yeah.
midwives for
Yeah.
600,000 Hebrews.
Yeah.
So there's a story being told here, and the first step of the story is they're not going to kill their own people. So the answer is really sort of simple and direct. And then when you get to their explanation of why the boys survive, then you understand how clever they are.
So this is interesting, right? Let's read then a little bit more, and we can use that still. Why have you done this thing, letting the boys live? The midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are vigorous. Before the midwife can come to them, they have given birth. So, all right, what could that statement be like if we look at the midwives being Hebrews or being non-Hebrews? What does that statement mean as a Hebrew midwife saying it versus an Egyptian midwife saying it? Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, wouldn't they have to be Hebrew? Because I'm wondering who else why would they possibly have a midwife who is not Hebrew? Who else would be doing that role?
I mean,
It certainly wouldn't be Pharaoh's people, because Pharaoh would just go in and kill, wouldn't he?
well, that comes later. It's the evolution of the dealing with the Israelites, right? He's not in Israel. He's like, well, we'll see what happens. I like that. Wait, I saw a new hand. Eric, go.
Hi, I'll introduce myself later, but the Pharaoh is meeting with what, a committee of midwives? How many people are involved in
Well,
this?
maybe maybe there's a whole bunch and these two just happen. We're focusing on these two in the story to
I
give
mean,
it a face.
Do we have the Pharaoh with like in an auditorium with all the midwives out there? Or
I don't
what's-
know.
I mean,
It's not very clear in the text. It might just be went to the house. I don't know. It's a good question.
I mean, it could be, anyway, continue, but this whole story is very strange,
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
as we know.
yeah. Go ahead, Penina.
Look how many times they repeated the word Elohim, Elohim, Elohim. They feared for the lives of the children because they themselves started to believe in this idea of the new God that the Hebrews were believing in. And this is what the whole idea here, why would they fear them? Because they were different. The whole idea that there is another God that's not a Pharaoh, that's what was the threat here. So look how many times they repeated the word Elohim. Which one is this Elohim? So that's the Elohim of the Hebrews. That's the one that they adopted once they went into the desert.
All
So
right.
this is, you have to understand why the repetition so many times. They feared the God of the Hebrews. The Pharaoh himself was a threat. It felt like he's in jeopardy because the Pharaohs was considered to be gods.
Great. All right, here we are. Moving on, unless somebody has one more comment. No, fabulous. Here we go. All right, here we go. Here we go. This is it. This is the story right here. A certain member of the house of Levi went and took into his household as his wife a woman of Levi. The woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw how beautiful he was, she hid him for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she got a wicker basket for him and caulked it with the bitumen and pitch. She put the child into it and placed it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile. And his sister, the baby's sister, stationed herself at a distance to learn what would befall him. Here we go. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the Nile. While her maidens walked along the Nile, she spied the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to fetch it. When she opened it, she saw that it was a child, a boy crying. She took pity on it and said, "This must be a Hebrew child." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get you a Hebrew nurse to suckle the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter answered, "Yes." All right, I'm going to stop right there for a second. Let's talk about this right here. What do we think about Pharaoh's daughter's actions? How do you think her father would feel about this? I mean, this is like serious social protest. This is like serious rebellion of your children. Here we have Pharaoh who was like, let's get rid of these people. Ben, what do you have to say?
But wasn't there some backstory that she had lost a child or wasn't able to conceive or something?
So
that
that's,
she wanted a baby?
that's midrash, right? Like it's us filling in the backstory, right? That's us filling in the backstory because we're working on this, doing this exact exercise. Right? Everything that we do here in our discussions help to fill in a backstory that we don't have.
Right.
So Ben, very good. It's akin to the story of Abraham smashing the idols, right? If many people have heard this story, believe that to be part of Torah, like actually in the Torah text, where it's not. It's midrash. It's a way of helping to bring us up to speed, if you will. Ben, very good, very nice. So let's talk about this. This is they said it's like the rebellious rabbi's child. They say when a clergy member has a child, you have to open 2 things. You have to open when the child is born. What is it? A 529 college fund.
Oh.
And a fund for therapy. Right? So that's what they say. Go ahead, Penina.
Okay, also, every time that there is a change in history, the mother of the child who is going to be responsible for the change is barren. It's to show how the child would be somebody very special. So we're looking at Sarah, she was barren, and then she had Isaac. Rebecca was barren, and she had Jacob. Rachel was barren too, and then she died when she gave birth. Every time that there is a change in history, Samuel, the mother was barren. Samson, the mother was barren because he was the last judge. After him, monarchy started. Every time, now Pharaoh's daughter is barren because this kid is going to make change in history. And that's what every time that there is a change, the mother was barren, to show the importance of the personality that's going to be.
So the assumption here, right? So the Midrash comes from a place of well, let's look at these other.
It's like a long-awaited child.
All right. This is interesting. This is very interesting.
One other trivial thing.
Go ahead, Aaron.
It was a boy, so we know it was a Hebrew because it was circumcised, correct?
Right.
Well, we don't know. We don't know, but maybe that's what she saw.
I mean, that would be the idea. The way it was ID'd, I would assume.
Possibly. I like it. Fantastic. All right, here we go. Now this is fascinating here, right?
Rabbi.
Yes. Who said that?
It's Brad.
Yeah, Brad. Go. What are you exercising? I love it.
Well, yeah. I've just stepped off my bike.
Okay.
But Rabbi, small point.
Please.
The text specifically says a Hebrew nurse, but it doesn't say a Hebrew midwife. So wouldn't we conclude, therefore, since it isn't specific about the midwife being Hebrew, that the midwife would be Egyptian?
It really doesn't matter.
I don't understand. Oh, so you're going back to the previous.
I'm going back to that issue of whether the midwives are Egyptian or Hebrew. Right. Because the text is very specific about the nurse being Hebrew.
Okay.
It says a Hebrew nurse. It doesn't make a similar statement about the midwife.
Fascinating.
Well, the sister was there and she brought the mother. So
yeah. So this is interesting. Thank you, Brad. Yes. All right. Check this out. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I will pay your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed it. When the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter. Okay. Who made him her son? She named him Moses, explaining, "I drew him out of the water." Okay. There is so much going on here. We don't know this child's given Hebrew name. We don't know this child's given Hebrew name. We don't even know because if this baby is taken and it basically when the child grew up, this child must have had some kind of relationship with the people that he was with, because later on when we're talking about his brother, whatnot, does this child know, first of all, what his name is? Because we sure don't. And second, that he has this feeling that he is, or he knows that he is a Hebrew, yet he is then going into Pharaoh's home as basically Pharaoh's grandson. So she calls him.
How did you learn to speak Hebrew?
Calls him
He speaks Egyptian?
Well, he's probably speaking everything.
No, he's grown up. His native language, Egyptian, correct?
Well, if he's whatever he's doing, living in this house, who knows what the Israelite people were speaking at the time, right?
Oh, no,
They
but I
lived in
mean,
Egypt
we
for
know
hundreds of
what
years.
the Egyptian people were speaking. They
They were
still
in
do.
Egypt, the Israelites are in Egypt already hundreds of years. Do we know that they were speaking Hebrew and not speaking Egyptian, or do they understand Egyptian? I mean, how many of us on this
He
Zoom?
knew he was Hebrew
How many
because he
people
went to
on this
look at his brothers.
Rina, I'm trying to ask a question.
He knew that he was Hebrew.
How many people on this Zoom are fluent Hebrew speakers? Right? But you're all
I have a
Jews,
master
right?
in
You're all
Hebrew.
Hebrews, you're all Jews. But you don't speak this, so you never know what was going on with those people. Hold on a second. David, go.
You know, it says that Moses lived with his nursing mother until he was until he was weaned, which
Yeah.
could be 3, could be 4. And the supposition is that that's enough time living in a house where Hebrew is spoken to have for Hebrew to be Moses' first language. So when he then moved into the palace, or whatever we call where the Pharaoh lives, Egyptian became his second language.
This is really interesting. This is something that you know what? This has kind of inspired me to do some research. What language were they actually speaking with each other versus what were they speaking with the Egyptians over these 400 years? Because they weren't just, I'm sure, trade, and if they were prolific farmers and whatnot, they're not just trading with each other. What language are they speaking? Right. So right away, Moses, who we know as Moshe, Moses, we don't know what his initial name was. We don't even know how he felt about going into this. We don't know. Maybe they never told him that he was actually their son. Like, how did he feel about going into this situation? We don't know.
We know.
Rabbi,
Who said that? Go ahead, Rebecca.
I have to assume that the Hebrews were assimilated. I mean, it had been centuries since Joseph had died. I have to assume that they were assimilated, but that does not prevent the wet nurse or the woman that was nursing Moses to teach him about his background.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. Okay, because this is really interesting. That whole point, you're ready for this. How it's not really clear, it's a little bit ambiguous. It will inform the way we read the next part of this text. All right, check it out. When the child,
Rabbi,
yes, who said that?
it's Brad again.
Go, Brad, go.
Can I just respond to the statement that Rebecca
100%.
made? Because, that was my initial thought, that they'd been there 400 years, they were assimilated.
Yeah.
And that's, but then I thought, well, the Egyptians were concerned in a war that they wouldn't side with the Egyptians, they would side with the enemy.
Yeah.
So maybe they weren't assimilated.
Really?
And
What
then
did Trump say? Oh,
Well,
your prime minister. Your prime minister.
But then I thought of the Holocaust and the fact that German Jews were assimilated,
Yeah.
and yet they were still perceived to be a threat.
Correct.
So we don't really know if these people have been assimilated or haven't been assimilated.
Correct.
It could go either way.
And whose definition of, right? Maybe the Israelites believe themselves to be, but the Egyptians are like, nah.
But it clearly seems from the previous stuff that the Israelites or the Hebrews are living in self-contained communities. They're growing their own food. That would still be they might be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you can, even in Anatevka, look, in Anatevka, right, with Tevya, they were living in their own little shtetl there, yet they were still, that in our village, there's more people living in our village and all those kind of things. There are these other people like His Honor the priest, His Honor the constable, right? So they still had relationships.
No, there would be administrators that they would have to deal with, but
Yeah.
they still, but there would still be a Hebrew culture speaking an early Semitic language, an early version of Hebrew.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think that we can definitively make that assumption.
Well, we have we have Moses delivering later in this chapter teachings in writing that were handed down from God. So that's written in some language. That this is something I've been thinking about for a long. I'm Eric, by the way. Glad to meet all you people. I've been following you for some time, and it's a very
Long time listener, first time caller.
Exactly. Yes. So, but there. I mean, this whole situation, because among other, well, just continue your disquisition, Rabbi.
All right, don't say that.
The results are going to
I'll
show.
be quiet for a while.
No, don't do that. Okay, here we go. All right, check this out. This was really interesting. I found that like the way that maybe the intonation of the way that we read this. Okay, I drew him out of the water sometime after that. When Moses had grown up, he went out to his kinfolk and witnessed their
No,
labor.
in Hebrew it says brothers. Literally.
Or achim could also be.
It meant
brothers,
he went to his brothers, not brothers like from father, but his brothers as a nation brother.
But yes, fine. Yes. Which can also be translated as kinfolk. Doesn't have to solely, I mean, because just brothers means just male. No, kinfolk is a little bit more egalitarian of a term.
Okay, go ahead. You'll
Thank
see.
you. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. One of
There
his
we go.
kinsmen. Yeah. So he
From his brothers. Me'echav.
Okay.
The Hebrew was from his brothers.
Yes, I got that. And
Got it. Okay.
it doesn't also just mean males. Echav doesn't just mean males. Okay.
It means somebody unique. Echad. Different.
Okay.
Unique, one of a kind.
Chaki. We're not going in that direction. This is not a class on etymology.
Okay.
He turned his way and that, you see, you made me mess up my reading here. Check it out. Here it is. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his kinsmen. Here it is. He turned this way and that, and seeing no one about, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Let's look at that. He turned this way and that, and seeing no one about, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
Well, the Hebrew he was beating was still about there. He watched it. I mean, the victim saw the whole thing.
Wait, okay, but let's look at that. He turned this way and that, and seeing no one about, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Why was he looking this way and that? Let's talk about what are the different possibilities of him looking this way and that.
Wants to make sure.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, he knew what he was doing was risky or wrong or going to be in trouble for.
A crime.
Okay, that's one way. Yes. What else could be a way? What you got, Pnina?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Because the people knew him. They knew that he was a prince. This is not, he wasn't a stranger to them. And
so
he
why look
to
this way and that? What could be the
to make sure to where is the people could say where is his loyalties? If he kills an Egyptian and he saves the Hebrew guy, he is a prince of Egypt. Where are his loyalties?
So you think he was looking, so one way that all of us have said so far, the one way of looking at it is as if he was looking to make sure nobody was going to see what he was going to do.
Yes.
But another way of looking at it, Jerry, what do you got?
Well, I want to amend what I said. I've always thought of this about him making sure an Egyptian isn't watching him, but he also might be making sure that other Hebrews aren't watching him.
Well,
Oh,
the victim watched him for sure. But there's one other thing, which is
Yeah.
that I mean, he's an Egyptian prince. He's got the rank of prince. He's got all the regalia. So why can't he just go up to the Egyptian and say, "I order you to stop beating up that guy"?
That is a very good question, because maybe he wasn't perceived like, yeah, whatever, sure, you were wearing it, but you're not really.
Or maybe he was in disguise.
Maybe he was
Rabbi,
also. Yeah, go ahead. Who's that?
that's Brad. You know,
Go ahead, Brad.
He's not so concerned about the morality of taking another life.
Or
He is
Okay.
more concerned about being caught.
no, no.
But what about?
He
what
told the
about-
mean
what-
one.
What
He
about?
told the bad one, why do you hit? Why do you
Tina,
beat
hold
up your
on,
friend?
hold on. Don't make me mute you. I'll do it. I got the button. I got the button. Could we possibly also look like he's looking around to see if anybody else is going to help, or if anybody else is going to do something? He could be like, what? Does anybody see what's happening here? Am I the only one who sees what's happening here? Apparently I am the only one who sees what's happening here. And maybe that is a reason for his action. Right?
But Rabbi, I come back to it. The Kantian categorical imperative, thou shalt not murder, is
Yeah.
not part of what's going through Moses's mind right now. He
Okay.
is not concerned about the morality of killing. He is more concerned about being caught.
But if okay, it could also be like, b'makom she'en anashim listader liot ish, in a place that is in need of leadership, stand up and be that leader, right? In a place where you need, you're going to look around. Is somebody else going to do it? Somebody else going to do it? Somebody else doesn't exist. That's just a different way of looking at it, I think. And that
It's a very good way to look at it. Why would he say to the mean one, why are you hitting your friend? So the morality was existing there, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting point, because coming up, so he did this thing. Yeah.
Before he killed him.
And then he said,
Vayomer larasha.
he turned this way. And then when he went out the next day, he found two Hebrews fighting. So he said to the offender, hey, why are you striking your fellow? And he retorted, who made you the chief and ruler over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Oh, Moses was frightened and thought, then the matter is known. So he's like, this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad for me, because see what happens next. When Pharaoh learned of the matter, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses had fled from Pharaoh. Now we're moving into something else interesting. Earlier we said, Prina brought up a fabulous point about when big changes are coming, a woman may be barren. There's another thing when big changes are coming, another thing always pops up. Here we go, get ready. He arrived in the land of Midian and sat down beside a well. Dun, dun, dun. Whenever there's a well popping up, we also know something big is going on here. Something big is going on here, right? Everybody's always meeting at the well. That's where stuff goes down. That's where everybody's always spilling the tea at the well, right? Go ahead, Penina. Penina, you have something to say? You're muted. She muted. You're muted. She muted. All right, here we go. We're going to keep going. Now, the priests of Midian had 7 daughters. They came to draw water and fill the troughs to water their father's flock, but shepherds came and drove them off. Moses rose to their defense, and he watered their flock. When they returned to their father Reuel, he said, "How is it that you have come back soon today?" They answered, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." What did Rebecca do when Eliezer first encountered her? Rebecca gave water to the camels and then to Eliezer. What did Rachel do when she first met Jacob? Gave him water. Now, what did Moses do when he came across these women? He took care of their animals, giving them water. All right, now you know this dude is going to be important. This dude is very impressive. This dude is he's got something within him that he is predisposed to being one of these next leaders, no matter how much he may protest. All right. Drew water. Why did you leave the man? Ask him in to break bread. Moses consented to stay with the man, and he gave Moses his daughter Tzipporah as a wife. She bore a son whom he named Gershom, for he said, "I have been a stranger in a foreign land." What does that mean? He named his son Gershom, or like stranger there, stranger in this land. What does that mean? What are the different possibilities of what that could mean about Moses's feeling about his own identity? Stranger where? Who's the stranger? He was a stranger. Where was he a stranger? Where was he a stranger? Where would he think he was? Are you talking, Doug?
Midian. He went to Midian.
Okay, so he was a stranger in Midian. Okay, where else could he have been a stranger? I like that, Rebecca. Thank you. Where else could he be a stranger? Pnina, where else could he be a stranger? You're muted.
All right. He said, he uses past tense. I was a stranger in a strange land.
Yeah.
He sees himself in Egypt. He was a stranger
Right.
because he's not saying I'm a stranger now. He says, I was a stranger in a strange land. Be'eretz Nochriya.
Yes. Okay. And he also could say, well, now I actually feel a part of this tribe with this Midian priest and everything like that. I was a stranger in a strange land, but now these are my people. I have my wife, my father-in-law, got my kids.
Are these Midianites Hebrews? Do they worship?
They are not Midianites, but they know of the Israelite God.
Okay, but they're not. Okay, but they're not part of the. They're not Jews, basically.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Oh my goodness, look at it. They can't even believe this time. There's so much more in this delicious portion that I wanted to talk about. We didn't even get to the burning bush. How is that even possible? All right, but there's one thing that I need to share that I just found really cool. That in this portion, we actually learn the name of God. We actually learn the name of God. And it's fantastic. Ready for this? Where did it go?
You passed it.
I passed it.
I believe so.
Yeah, I did. Now, who should I say? To Moses, this should speak to you. This is the God of your father. Here it is. God of your fathers, a house who sent me to you. And when they ask me, what is God's name? What shall I tell them? Ehyeh asher ehyeh. Thus shall you say to the Israelites. Often, up until this moment, until I read this on Instagram. Very funny this day. So we say, asher ehyeh, asher ehyeh. I will be that which I will be. Or God's name is Asher. Like, the way that James Bond introduces himself. Bond. James Bond. Here it says, Ehyeh, Asher Ehyeh. God's name is Asher, everybody. We've figured it out. It's amazing. With that, I'm wishing you, everybody, a big Shabbat Shalom. Fabulous that you joined us here. And to be continued. Hope to see you again soon next week.
Rabbi, can I talk to you briefly after this closes?
Oh, well, yes, I'm not in charge of this thing. Yeah, well, okay. You know what I'm gonna try and do here? Yeah. I'm gonna put you in the waiting room for a second. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye,
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
Shalom. Thank
Shabbat
you.
shalom. Hey, Shabbat shalom.
Good to see you, Rabbi Eshel.
Great
Shabbat
to
shalom.
see you, Jerry. Shabbat shalom. Joy, I'll see you soon.
Yes.
See you next week.
May I catch you by email at some point, Rabbi Eshel?
Please do call me.
Is that okay?
It's better.
Thank you.
Bye, Jerry.
Bye.
Bye, Panina. Bye, Mark.